Welcome, everyone, to today's webinar on the future of cyber-physical manufacturing, how modular architecture shapes product roadmaps. We're here to explore the exciting intersection of modular architecture, agile product management, and cutting-edge product road mapping technologies, especially from the perspective of global product management teams. I'm pleased to introduce Mazier Adel, co-founder and CTO of Gocious, and Simon Leyland, the Director of Customer Success at Gocious, who will be leading today's conversation. Let's start with the basics. Maz, what does cyber-physical product management mean in today's world?
So I can give you my perspective. So cyber-physical product management is the management of platforms or products throughout their development lifecycle, where you have to bring in not just hardware components, but also software components. Now, you have to also remember that more and more you see that products or hardware that are based on platforms, they're becoming digitized. They mostly started with firmware and mostly digitization of IoT, but now you can see more and more actually the control of the machines and the way the components are introduced in the market are through software, and the product is acting or the hardware is acting as a platform for the software to kind of turn it on and bring the behavior to the hardware. So cyber physical products are introducing new challenges because the cadence and the ways of working of software and introduction of the features in software and hardware are quite different, and they somehow have to come together.
Well, in your experience, Maz, how do hardware and software teams typically align when developing new products, and what challenges do they face in maintaining that alignment?
So, as you know, the hardware takes a long lead time to design to make it, something that can be not just designed, but all the supply chain come to place, and also the revisions of the product. And when everything's going to be ready for manufacturing, takes quite a bit of time. And also, once it gets into manufacturing, changing it becomes a little bit harder. In the case of software, you have a very different cadence, meaning you can release the software much more rapidly. And also, when the product is in the hands of the customer, you can still change the nature of the product by deploying more software, which means that these two teams are working with different timelines, with different speed, and different stages in their life cycle. So, but they all obviously have touch points. They have to work in tandem because at some point these pieces come together to get integrated, and they have interdependencies. So the question is, can the organizations map those interdependencies and track those interdependencies so in the right time these teams can come and connect and then go back to their cadence in general.
And can you share an example from the customers that Gocious is supporting today where better collaboration between hardware and software teams has led to a more successful product launch?
Sure. We have, for example, we have an industrial machinery customer that more and more software is shaping their machines, and so or their final products. So these intradependencies and making sure that all this hardware and software can get integrated on time became more and more complex because the points of connection grew over time. Now, in the same time, there was a drive for innovation. So the software team had to get out of the short, longer cadence, slower innovation to kind of be able to take advantage of the fact that you can write software much faster and build it much faster. So they had to go and kind of create their own team to move fast. So as a result, there was obviously a disconnect, and they were not sure if the hardware that's coming out, the software is going to be ready for it, and vice versa. And so the teams kind of went in silos. But by bringing transparency and bringing these two teams on one central place, they were able to see immediately their connecting points and prioritize the software features to line up with the hardware roadmaps and to provide focus on the things that need immediate delivery or delivery on a specific hardware and get proper dates out of them.
As connected as you are to the way that global teams work today, and how technology really supports their initiatives, what specific tools and specific processes have you found most effective in bridging that divide between hardware and software product teams, especially considering varying priorities, initiatives, and varying cycles across time zones and sometimes cultures?
Just to be frank with you, that's exactly why we kind of decided to go on this journey to build Gocious. It was because we saw a gap in this tool. What we do realize is that to bring transparency and bring efficiency on delivery of the products from ideation to production, you need to make sure that the teams work in tandem. As I mentioned, the challenges between the two kinds of teams, the software and hardware, it was very hard to see this in one tool. Most of the tools we researched out there were either heavily catering to managing a hardware stage gate environment, or they were heavily managing digitized products. But there was nothing that really brought what we call cyber physical together in one central place where you can create the intradependencies between them, regardless of whether you're working on a software team or working on a hardware team or working on a hybrid team. So bringing all the components together and to work with different cadences, but have a dashboard to see how everything gets connected together and to understand the impact of changes on your overall roadmap. And that's one of the reasons that we moved Gocious to a point to kind of make it our mission to cater to these kind of industries where people need to bring these teams together.
So let's open up the conversation and start discussing the role of modular product architecture in Agile product management, or what teams today consider Agile methodology, Agile product management, and so on. Specifically, how does Gocious define modular architecture in your offerings for product leaders? And why is it so critical to create a unified platform that's a single source of truth for product management teams?
Modular product architecture is nothing new in the world of manufacturing, but from a software perspective, it definitely is. Typically, software is just released as a final product and updated over time, things like this. And a lot of systems out there today support that from a digital perspective very well. The nuance with manufacturing is this modular architecture is the life cycle of the modules themselves can be completely separate from the products or the platforms that they belong on. And so being able to manage that and have visibility of it and then inject change into it, and then for also the teams that have to interact with it to understand how these things come together becomes very critical. And, you know, as a interesting analogy to how that can be successful or unsuccessful, I could take you for a ride in our most recent family car. And quite frankly, the software integration with the hardware has been appalling. We knew that going into buying the car. It was part of one of the sort of weird quirks of the car, and we're prepared to live with it. But for example, you plug your phone in and sometimes it will connect, sometimes it won't connect. And that's due to this disconnected world of the software not being necessarily understanding of all the different modular ways that the product can come together to understand potentially, hey, I don't support this combination of things happening because I simply don't understand it. And so the ability for people to be able to clearly look at something and say, okay, here are all the different modules. Here's what's available. Here's what I need to support. And being able to visualize that quickly and easily becomes critical, in our opinion, to being able to better integrate and make these silos work together better than they do today.
Maz, how do you define modular architecture? And how does it relate to creating a unified platform for product managers?
In a modular architecture, you have you have a platform, but you're not allowed to kind of change that platform too often. So a platform essentially is a placeholder for building blocks, but this placeholder, the interfaces are defined. So you're saying, okay, here's my platform. These are the things you can put on this platform, and here's how they connect to each other. But you can make changes to those pieces, but you cannot make too many changes on the platform. It says that's very expensive. So that's modular architecture. So in a modular architecture, the platform's there, but you can keep changing these modules quite rapidly. But they all have to work like a symphony. So every time you upgrade a module, change a module, you improve a module, it still has impacts on other parts of the system. So it all has to kind of come together. So you have to track everything, all these pieces, and how they come together on a regular basis, when they're going to be available, and how they're going to come together on regular basis, right? And then if you have the ability to change modules more frequently, so software, you can change the modules every week, right? Essentially, you can, in hardware, that's hard, but in software, you can't. So essentially, when you're doing that, now you have to track them even more rapidly and kind of track everything on a roadmap to see what the impact of all these changes are across the board.
And so an ideal solution for product management teams is that 360-degree view.
Yes, because there's conflicts, there are delays, there are changes that have ripple effects across the products, and and you can't assume that every module can be completely in a silo. They still impact each other, and they have to come together as a system. So you want to track how they're being delivered, on how they're being developed. And you have to remember, every one of these modules can have a team of anywhere between 10 to 150 people designing, working on it to bring it together. So obviously they go in a silo, right? So, and then when they come out, they have to be able to plug them all together to come up with a new generation of the product.
Yeah, and the bit where it gets interesting with all of that is that it's not necessarily that it's not just the modules themselves that can be plugged and unplugged and need solutioning. The interfaces between modules also needs solutions. And for certain manufacturers and stuff, understanding the way the combinations of modules that can be put together is key to then understanding, well, how many solutions of those do I need? And what do I mean by that? Well, to put it in simplistic terms and to kind of visualize it, I'm a global automotive manufacturer. My car is available as a right-hand drive or a left-hand drive. My vehicle goes to markets that are kilometers per hour and miles per hour. So if I have those things as understandings and they drive certain modules within the car, does every combination go together? Can I have a right-hand drive or a left-hand drive in miles per hour and kilometers per hour? Well, that's 4 combinations that I've got to come up with solutions for. Or do I only have to know that left-hand drive and miles per hour is a combination that goes together as modules, but left-hand drive and kilometers per hour don't go together, so I don't need a solution for that. And that's where that deeper understanding of the modules and how do they interact with each other can become quite critical for a manufacturer.
So Simon, it comes down to flexibility, right? And being able to incorporate voice of customer, market demands, and so on. So how does Gocious support modular product designs that must remain flexible and must accommodate changing customer needs?
The way that we've gone about it is allowing the teams to easily and quickly obviously break down their products in a modular fashion, but then also to take those feature requests or those requirements coming from the customers, what they're asking for and stuff, prioritize them and be able to quickly and easily point them to the solution, be they the products themselves or the modules being rolled out, so that they can better understand, okay, what am I getting with this new module? Because as a product owner or a product manager, sometimes you're just faced with, right, well, here's a whole raft of things that you can choose to put onto the products. Why do I take one over the other? What is a particular module that has some function? What is the functionality that that module provides me that the other modules don't? Being able to see that quickly and easily is critical. And also, but then the flip side to it is saying, okay, customers are coming to me with these feature requests and things like that. Which modules have I got available in my arsenal that I know are going to support them? I don't have one. I've got to go and find a new module, be it coming in from a third-party supplier, or I'm going to have to go to the development teams and say, hey, we need a new module and it needs to be able to meet these requirements that are coming from our customers. Having a system that allows you to do that all in this sort of, I know it's a bit of a cliche, but this single place where everything is together, so that you can then map that from, that inception of customer asked for this, it resulted in this. You can tell that story in one place. It's so critical these days. And in our experience at the moment, some of our customers that are in this space and struggling with these problems, because literally the left hand being the software world or the technology arm doesn't know what the right hand, the hardware, the two are not coordinated. They're not talking to each other. They don't even understand. But at the end of the day, they're trying to put a product that brings all this together out the door. And so having that single place to visualize all of this and make sure that it's all going to come together on time is absolutely critical.
I want to dig into real-time updates for adaptive product roadmaps or dynamic product roadmaps. What does that mean? How does that unified platform that you're talking about lead to better outcomes, better decision-making for product teams? So specifically, how important is real-time visibility to adaptive product portfolio roadmaps, let's say, for making informed decisions? And how does that ability impact product teams responding quickly to market changes?
Typical product portfolio plans traditionally are very stagnant, and they're not very often reviewed. What do we mean by that? Well, a manufacturer, as opposed to somewhere just simply producing software, manufacturing business plans, portfolio plans are 3, 5, 10 years or more. That plan is set in motion. It's reviewed maybe once a year. A really good organization might be reviewing it quarterly within the year. But it was interesting because Mars and I were actually talking about this earlier. It's almost like you spend all your time pulling together the plan and present it, but then you don't do anything with it afterwards. It just dies again, and you walk away, and then you come back and repeat the exercise at your next review. And what that means is that you end up in a position where you're not working with the latest level of data. I can't remember who it was. One of our customers was like one thing that you do know with a portfolio plan on a spreadsheet or a PowerPoint presentation is as soon as I've finished working on it, it's out of date. With a digital environment and the ability to pull in information like this real time, you actually can become much more reactive, proactive in terms of making change, identifying that things are going off track. So we have visualizations, for example, where you can track how is the portfolio performing against a particular KPI set, be it, say, something like waste reduction or something like that, for example. You set the strategy, you predict what you think is going to happen against the portfolio, and then you can see, well, am I going to hit my goal or not? Then you start executing on that strategy. Well, what does that mean? As you start executing, do all of your plans deliver the improvements or the reductions that you thought you were going to see? Typically not, because you were making predictions, and predictions can go way off kilter, right? At the end of the day, it's a guess. You're just making an estimation. But if you can start to then update and pull in what's actually happening, then you can use that information to better pivot, look for opportunities, make adjustments, and all of these sort of things, and do it much more regular. And I think that's that sort of key change that you will always get from moving away from a static environment like spreadsheets, PowerPoints, and so on and so forth into a digital environment where you can take that information, simply inject it into the system, and then let it just have its effects ripple through a digital environment and say, well, because of this thing happening, I can now tell you that your 5-year business plan is no longer going to happen, right? So what are you going to do? How are you going to react? And that's one of those big drivers we see with a lot of our customers coming to us. They're like, well, we want this visibility. We want to understand faster so we can react.
And it's easy to see where those benefits become exponential when you're not talking about a single product, but a whole line of products or a whole portfolio of products that you're managing.
There's a lot of great tools out there and stuff that will help you start to do some of these things. But in my experience, a lot of them are more focused on the singular, right? They're not taking that wider, more portfolio specific view of letting you say, okay, what is this effect across my product lines? Typically, in my experience, a lot of manufacturers are more focused on a product or maybe a product by product line sort of view of the world, but they're not taking it to that next level up and saying, okay, I want to not just look at it at those levels. I also want to have that umbrella look across the entire portfolio of mine.
If you don't mind, I want to show something so we can kind of put a little bit meat behind this, if that's okay. About this, it seems like this is actually our product, and this is an example of a space that we use for demos. But you see, if your entire portfolio has a target for waste reduction, so you can come here and say, I believe based on the projects and the plans for releasing new products, collectively, in 5 years, I should have a waste reduction of 3.1. Now, if you think that that is not meeting the target based on the plans that you've received over time, you can drill down to see where the issue is. So you can come here and say, well, these are my product lines, and say, we have monitors, laptops, and desktops. But in the case of laptops, for example, we want to see which ones are coming short of hitting their target. So maybe you realize that this is too low and you're asking for inspiration to bring in more innovation or to increase their waste by unit production to meet the targets that you need and increase the amount of waste reduction you're achieving at the overall portfolio. But you wouldn't know that if you don't have this ability to see the entire portfolio, because the targets are set at the portfolio level. So the business might come to you and say, I need this much waste reduction across my portfolio, or I need this much more revenue across my portfolio. It's not about one product, it's about collective, and everybody has to pitch in to kind of get it to that level that you need. So you can see that this coordination for tracking KPIs of where your business is going to end in the future, or where is it going to land, and whether it's in line with your needs is something that we think is very important. Our customers are asking for it. The other one is obviously tracking the modules, and that's about knowing when a module is going to be available. So if you have, in this case, if you have a battery, as Simon was mentioning, if you have real-time inputs, immediately if this battery is not going to be ready, or it's been pushed, the introduction of this battery is going to be pushed back to a later date. So this bracket shows when this battery is going to be available in the market, so you can use it in your laptops that you are producing. Then you see you have a plan that needs this battery, but the battery is not going to be ready for the launch of that product. The product is coming a little bit earlier. So this is the date, the blue line is the date that that product is going to get launched, but the battery is not going to be ready. But if you have real-time information about this, so if somebody goes, for example, and changes the date of this plan to an earlier date, so if it's kind of like 2021, for example, and you in real time you can see this information, whether it's coming from let's say another system, or you have a team that takes care of this, then this would get updated, and you can see now the battery is now available. And so this real-time understanding of whether everything is aligned or not is very important for our customers, and they do track this on a regular basis. Usually companies have regular meetings that are usually quarterly. So they have quarterly review of the roadmaps if they're portfolio roadmaps. And to prepare for that quarterly review, they spend a lot of man hours to get ready for that quarterly review and collect data and information from everywhere into spreadsheets. And then eventually they become PowerPoints. And then finally they go to these quarterly meetings, and then they have to update it. But instead of spending a lot of time trying to put this data together for one meeting, if you have collaborative environments where people can update near real time or real time and can change the roadmap, when you go into these meetings, the roadmap's ready for you, and your focus is to solve problems. So you're looking at the roadmap to see if there has been any issues, and you can realign the roadmap with the business objectives or propose strategies to get there, as opposed to making this a data collection exercise and PowerPoint generation exercise for the most part. So you have more time in creating strategies or adjusting strategies, as opposed to essentially doing data collection and PowerPoint generations.
So what role do those real-time updates play in keeping product roadmaps aligned across global teams, often across regions? And can you share an example where real-time updates helped avoid potential issues or misalignments across global teams?
Actually, you kind of saw a little bit in the demonstration I made. So imagine if you have a complicated product or a platform, your modules and the teams are all over the globe sometimes, and they're kind of contributing from every location. And recently, with a lot of companies working from remote locations, this is even more exaggerated. So to get the real-time information, it's important, because otherwise you have to coordinate meetings and bring everybody in the room on a high cadence, especially if you have software coming on the hardware. As I mentioned, these changes happen more rapidly now. But put software aside for a second. Right now, even though the teams are now growing to become more global, and even if they're not global, they're remote in many locations. So, but in the same time, there is a big drive and demand in the market to change the products more rapidly in general. So if you think about it, you have pressures from more sustainable products to changing everything to EV, or changing the products to cyber physical products. So your products are constantly going through shifts and changes that you didn't have this much dynamic move, let's say 10 years ago. So your roadmaps are constantly shifting, and the people are all over the place. So you're bringing talent from anywhere to contribute to this. This global nature of bringing the talents together to be able to update the plans and the roadmaps in real time, to be able to go and log into one central place and immediately see the impact of a change that somebody maybe puts in your system in Europe, on the impact that it might have in the United States, and the teams that in the United States are contributing to that product, becomes even more important.
Now, I'll just jump in here quickly as well to give one that's actually a bit more real and not so theoretical. One of our customers based in Europe, they use modules coming from a Japanese supplier. The Japanese supplier basically end of life the module and didn't tell our customer until about 3 months before that module was due to be deprecated. Without our tool, they would have had no way of knowing all of the different product lines that were impacted, because this information is all on spreadsheets and stuff like that, and it's not held at a portfolio level. So they had no idea where this particular module was being used. And it had the potential to take down multiple product lines because they simply just didn't have visibility of this information. And so with something like our tool, like Mars was showing just before, it's as simple as going in and saying, well, hey, this thing's no longer going to be available anymore. Show me what the effect of that is across the portfolio and let me see it in real time so I understand how big a problem I've got and what I'm going to do to solve it.
In closing, let me ask you both, how do you see the landscape evolving over the next 2 to 3 years? And what technologies will shape this process for cyber physical product teams?
I see manufacturers that have typically been slow to react and slow to make change, being able to change faster, move with greater agility, because the tools will help them to be able to do that. Yes, you are always going to have some things that can't be changed. And what do I mean by that? There's this stuff where you can't defy the laws of physics. To create a tool to set up a stamping line and things like that, they take time. And you can speed them up a little bit and stuff, but you can't take something that needs to be on a ship from one location to another for 6 months. You can't just magically speed that up and make it happen in a couple of days. So those things are, immutable. You can't change those, but you can give them visibility into what they can change quicker with greater tooling and stuff. And that is where the agility will come from for some of these manufacturers, is recognizing where there are the quick wins and things like that, rather than treating everything as being, well, hey, you want to change this? It's going to take you 12 months because that's what it takes for the longest thing to change.
Well, as you know, it's kind of an exciting time in general for digital products, and especially products like ours or the products that Gocious delivers in this space. But some of so I can name maybe a laundry list, but I can down select it to just a few. As you can see, a lot of our platforms are designed for people to visualize the roadmap and to understand how everything comes together through different creative visuals, and also to map these dependencies. But with the advancement of AI, you can actually ask or introduce AI into these systems to detect anomalies or ask direct questions and pull the configuration or the roadmap configurations or visuals that you really need, or to simply get answers to, hey, is there any module that I should be focusing on today? That's one. The other is demand management. So all these plans to go on the roadmap, you need to capture the requirements from the customers, prioritize these plans, and then eventually they make their way to the roadmap. Being able to speed up the categorization of these demands, scoring of these demands, prioritization of these plans to go on those roadmaps. The more we automate this to make it easier for a plan or a strategy to come together is very important. And then finally, providing recommendations. So if you have a roadmap and the roadmap is misaligned, what are my options to bringing that strategy back to or in line with company objectives? Can the system provide recommendations as a result? Those are things that even though it's not today, but we see that the technologies are starting to become available to make those adjustments and kind of augment the product manager, so to speak, to help the product manager make much better decisions, especially global product managers that are overlooking the profile of products or portfolio of products. So,
yeah, just to bounce off that, what Lars is talking about, I think, over the next few years, with what we're seeing coming in the advancements of AI and stuff, there's a huge opportunity for manufacturing organizations to, leverage their information, their data. And what do I mean by that? Well, a lot of people are thrown at building up a great strategic plan, roadmap. What are we going to do? That roadmap's set into motion and starts being executed. How good was that strategy? How well did we predict what was going to happen and these sort of things? You are then in a digital environment, obviously have the ability to then start tracking, well, what actually happened? Did we hit our numbers? Did we achieve what we said we were going to achieve and things like that? Layer something like AI over the top of it where it can look at that and start to learn and say, help you make better predictions, right? Help you build a better strategy. I remember talking to somebody in automotive manufacturing at a car show 5 years ago. He was like, do you think we're going to get to a time where we're going to have a tool that will actually tell us what to do? 5 years ago, I would have said, no way, not with doing things that my experience of automotive with, spreadsheets and PowerPoint. And I keep coming back to it, but that's the reality of the world a lot of these manufacturers live in. Moving to a digital environment, being able to layer this AI over the top of it could be an absolute game changer here. And it feels a bit like opening Pandora's box, but it'll be fun to see where it goes.
Yeah, I think, I can see the same thing, but I also see a much better collaboration between the internal teams in the company to speed up this evolution of cyber physical products, but also supplier, I guess you can say OEM relationship can kind of get much more streamlined because they can see the end-to-end life cycle through digitization and bringing all these new ways of working with whether it's agile or bringing some agile software concepts into manufacturing, or it's just simply in manufacturing creating adaptive ways of managing roadmaps to kind of make adjustments on the fly. So the fact that companies need to act faster and with more flexibility, the people who do not take advantage of these digitizations and modernization of their portfolio planning or working with suppliers obviously will fall behind because they can't act fast. Whereas the ones that will be able to compete in the market, they're the ones that have this transparency, this visualization to be able to act immediately in the market and to bring innovation to the market at a much rapid speed, but not just bringing it faster. It's also bringing it in a way it's really what the market wants. So positioning it right and timing it right for the market is also something that they would be able to do more frequently. And so I think that I see, to put it, just in summary, I kind of see that more and more companies would be able to deliver what the population or the market wants in a more timely manner, and it's more spot on. So you hopefully have less misses on the products that would not be successful in the market, or the timing of it is wrong, compared to more products that people always need in the market.
Thank you, Maziar and Simon, for sharing your insights with us today. And thank you to everyone who joined us. As we've seen, modular architecture, agile methodologies, and real-time updates are transforming how we approach product management in the cyber physical manufacturing space. We hope you walk away with valuable ideas and strategies for enhancing collaboration and decision-making in your own teams. If you have follow-up questions or would like to explore these topics further, please reach out and have a great rest of your day.